Hey, hey, the drug class. Woo! All right, here we are, the second half of the alcohol lecture. Stay strong, guys. I know this is not the best way to get an education. I gotta be candid. This lecture needs your undivided attention. This is fine for reviewing while you're chopping your vegetables, but you're gonna need to sit down and take some notes on this. I just want to get a couple of key points across, some of which are a little more complicated than others. We're going to get into the subjective effects of alcohol, how your body breaks it down, how we try to control for placebo effects and just expectancies, and move into also some of the issues that are related to, loosely, to treatment. It's going to set us up for next week's work on alcoholism, so we'll be ready. Okay. The oxidative breakdown and elimination of alcohol. The key here is just that we've got a two-step process to focus on when we talk about alcohol going from ingested to excreted, right? But basically, we're going to take alcohol and turn it into oxygen and carbon dioxide, and the calories are going to get turned into energy. But along the way, we need a couple of enzymes. You're going to notice that the enzymes all end in the letters ASE. So literally any enzyme ends in ASE. Salivary amylase, one of the enzymes in your saliva, breaks down certain things and ends in ASE. DNA has an enzyme that takes it apart, and they literally call it DNA ACE. Right? It's just that's the way we do the naming. That's the nomenclature rule. So alcohol is going to break down in the first step to acetaldehyde, and essentially you're going to have this enzyme, alcohol dehydrogenase, right? So it's going to go from alcohol to acetaldehyde via alcohol dehydrogenase, right? And so really the first part of the name is what is it starting with, and then it ends in ACE, and as you can guess, this basically takes off some of the hydrogen atoms on the molecule. Well, this first step is going to leave us with acetaldehyde, and acetaldehyde is in some ways toxic. So acetaldehyde is going to then be broken down to acetic acid via acetaldehyde dehydrogenase. All right, and again, it's that same process. We're going to take some hydrogen atoms off the molecule. Acetaldehyde is toxic, but acetic acid is not. Acetic acid is what we find in vinegar. And in fact, vinegar is often brewed in a technique that involves alcohol-related beverages and the appropriate enzymes and weighting. All right. So we're going from alcohol to acetaldehyde via alcohol dehydrogenase, and from acetaldehyde to acetic acid via acetaldehyde dehydrogenase. All right. Well, what's so intriguing about this is because acetaldehyde has a toxicity, this is what turns people red when they are drinking. If they drink faster than their enzymes can keep up with the acetaldehyde that's in there, right? In fact, the Asian flush, you may know folks from Asian countries or of Asian descent. Some Yemenite Jews have this as well. Lots of folks, basically, if they drink too quickly, they end up getting all flushed and red. And then a subset of folks even will get nauseated and essentially have an adverse reaction to it. Well, the drug antabuse, which is disulfiram, basically messes around with that enzyme, so you end up with all this acetaldehyde and have an aversive reaction if you do drink. It's essentially playing around with the alcohol dehydrogenase so that you end up with too much acetaldehyde in your system. I may have mentioned a client I had before who was more than a bit of a sociopathic character, and he said, "Oh yeah, I would be on antabuse, but I would just go ahead and drink anyway." And I'd say, "What happened?" And he said, "Oh, I'd turn all red and throw up, but then I just had room to drink more." So I think clearly a subset of folks maybe just have one big reaction to it and then claim they can drink on top of it. But truth be told, it's not something you want to try. This is not a fun game. And as treatments for alcoholism go, disulfiram antabuse is one of the most effective. Now, the most effective was used in Soviet bloc countries, and it was called supervised antabuse, which was a euphemism for basically you came in and swallowed it down and they looked down your throat and made sure you did. But as you might imagine, it did keep folks from drinking. If you're on it now and it's working for you, by all means, good for you. I have had clients think about lowering their dosage when they're prescribed antabuse, and it's a really idiographic thing and really does depend on your own personal interactions. It does get a little weird in that any alcohol can make you nauseated and turn all red. So if you're putting on a lot of cologne, or if you happen to be around some people wearing too much perfume, or in other settings where there's a lot of alcohol around, you could end up having this aversive reaction, even if you aren't necessarily drinking some potentially fun alcoholic beverage. But it is definitely good for relapse prevention. All right. So here I do have a fun slide just as an example question, and I'll post the Kahoots on this as well. So the enzyme for alcohol metabolism is it A, acetyl dehydrogenase, alcohol dehydrogenase, or DNAase? And you know the name is always whatever it's going to break down in the beginning, and that's alcohol. So alcohol dehydrogenase is the answer. The enzyme for breaking down alcohol is alcohol dehydrogenase. Ooh, and here's a throwback from our last lecture. Which of these alcoholic beverages contains juniper? Is it schnapps, beer, or gin? And you guys know it's gin. Juniper, basically the name gin comes from that word juniper, but it's in Dutch. All right, so now we're going to move to expectancies and subjective effects of alcohol. And I just want to talk about what's known as the balanced placebo design. All right. So my pal Alan Morlatt, may his soul rest in peace, the guy who wrote the foreword to the marijuana book that we're going to read, basically he came up with this notion of sort of a 2x2 manipulation of both alcohol and expectancy. The notion being that we know that alcohol has some pharmacological effects, but alcohol also has some effects related to just our anticipation of alcohol, what we think alcohol is going to do. And so we need to get at that as well. And then he pointed out, hey, look, we've got it going in both directions. So we need to orthogonally manipulate whether you get alcohol or not, and whether you're told you have alcohol or not, right? So there may be some ways to get at both the pharmacological effects and the expectancy effects independently of each other. All right. So I put these numbers down here. These are not important, but basically I've got group 1 is they're told they're ingesting alcohol and they're given alcohol. All right. That's a valid cell. What are we going to get with this? Well, on its own, we're going to have folks who got alcohol and expected to get it. And here's what happened. All right. It's not going to tell us a lot unless we can compare it to some of the other cells, some of the other conditions. So group 2 is told they're ingesting a non-alcoholic beverage, but they're given alcohol. All right. Now this is one of the fooled cells, right? One of the manipulated cells, right? But they're getting alcohol slipped on them even though they don't expect it. Now, obviously the problem is you can't do this at very high doses. And Chris Martin and I, when we were in grad school, took a look at some of the issues around this. But the bottom line is this should give us a feel for pharmacological effects of alcohol because they're given alcohol without the expectancy. So they're told they're not getting alcohol. Let's see how they act when they actually get it. In group 3 here, I said told they're ingesting alcohol, but they're given non-alcohol. Okay, this is classic placebo, right? This is just pure expectancy. How do people behave when they think they've gotten alcohol even though they don't have the pharmacological effects? And group 4, they're told they're ingesting a non-alcoholic substitute and they're given a non-alcoholic substitute. So this is yet another valid condition. This is just, hey, what happens if you just sit in here and drink something that you know is an alcohol and is an alcohol? All right, let me show you the next slide here. I've laid it out as a 2x2 here. So across the top, I said this is what folks are told. They're either told they're getting alcohol or they're told they're getting placebo. And then they're randomly assigned to learn the truth here. They actually are getting alcohol or they actually are getting placebo. And I'm just going to walk through those cells again and talk about what we would learn by comparing which ones. All right. So we've got that first cell where you're told alcohol and you receive alcohol. It's valid. It's going to give us both alcohol's physiological impact, pharmacological impact, and the expectancies. All right. Well, what would that tell us if we compared it to a placebo group where they're told they get alcohol, but they don't actually get alcohol? Well, this is going to be pharmacology only, right? And if I compare this to the group that got alcohol and expected to get it, I might get some insights into what happens if you've got a placebo, even though you were told you get alcohol. In contrast, now we've got folks who were told they were going to get alcohol, but they didn't get any. And this is going to be expectancy only, right? They're fooled, but they're fooled in the sense that they're expecting alcohol, don't get it. This is the classic placebo effect. And this will tell us what is essentially the expectancy, what happens when people think they've gotten alcohol, independent of the pharmacology. And then finally, the other valid control, that no alcohol and no expectation. And as you can imagine, this will just give us a feel for what happens if you're sitting in the lab doing this kind of thing, drinking nothing and knowing that you're drinking nothing, right? So the interesting comparisons are also often about these fooled cells. So what is the pharmacological effect of alcohol all by itself, independent of expectancies? And what are the expectancies in that fooled placebo group? What are the expectancies by themselves when they don't have alcohol, but they think they've gotten it, all right? And some of the intriguing work about this has come up in some of the sexual side effects, some of the aggression work, and another subset of behaviors. But it looks like alcohol's sexual enhancement effects, I think Shakespeare probably said it best, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, right? It encourages the desire, but not the performance, right? But it turns out, particularly in folks who have some anxiety around sexual performance, alcohol seems to help them get by that. And that is partly, at least, a pretty big placebo effect. So, as you can imagine, in the lab, these are a little tough to measure, but you use that penile plethysmograph, as we talked about. It's just a little mercury tube that goes around a penis. And then you see, hey, folks can actually get aroused in response to placebo if normally they would have had trouble getting aroused thinking they didn't have alcohol. Aggression, it turns out, in the last grant I had from NIAAA actually got at this, alcohol-induced aggression is very much a pharmacological effect. So a subset of folks certainly have the expectancy and certainly are more hostile when they are drinking. But pharmacologically alone, we not only see that folks drink alcohol and get more aggressive, they're more aggressive not only to folks who irritate them, but to innocent third parties, right? This triggered displaced aggression, where basically somebody who didn't do anything to you is completely innocent. You're mean to them as well. Never mind being meaner in a situation where someone has essentially done something to irritate you. And you know how these things work in the lab. Some stooge comes in and says nasty things to you, or basically criticizes your performance in the experiment, and then some other person who's joining the experiment later who's done nothing to you, there's an opportunity to aggress against that person. And unfortunately, alcohol makes folks particularly mean under those circumstances. Right? But the take-home message on this is just, we've got a way to separate expectancies from pharmacological effects by using this balanced placebo design. But let's get into just a little bit on acute physiological effects more subjectively, all right? And now, obviously, what does it mean to be drunk is a pretty complicated question. And actually, Chris Martin and I spent a lot of time with people saying, basically, how do you feel? And they say, come on, drunk, blah, blah, blah. And we broke it down into both stimulating and sedating effects. And it's funny because the idea that alcohol is a stimulant is popular in popular culture. It is nothing like either the major stimulants, cocaine, amphetamine, or the minor stimulants, nicotine or caffeine that we talked about before. But at least a subset of folks, as their blood alcohol concentration is increasing, right, as their blood alcohol concentration is going up on what we call the ascending limb of that blood drug curve, do report stimulation. And Chris and I both done some work, and then other folks kind of ran with it to show stimulation in response to alcohol, especially on the ascending limb, is probably a risk marker for alcohol problems. All right. And I basically just watched people drinking in my family to figure this out. But we documented that. Obviously, if you're sedated after 2 beers and fall asleep, you're not going to get into as much trouble as if you're 3 beers in and even more aroused and ready to drink more and party later, right? And so this essentially has been linked to a family history of risk. So children, particularly sons of alcoholic fathers, seem to report more of the stimulation and less of the sedation. Intriguingly, we also connected this to some of the hangover literature, and other folks at Missouri have really run with this and done a great job. But basically, we had a measure of hangover. Initially, everybody thought, well, okay, I bet people at risk, children of alcoholics, things like that, would have no hangover at all, and so then they would never learn, and it wouldn't be a big deal to them, and maybe that's why they would drink again. In fact, it was quite the opposite. So particularly sons of alcoholic fathers would have less of a response to the alcohol, but then more of a hangover, and then do that hair of the dog drinking, right? Do that withdrawal relief by saying, oh, I'll just have one Bloody Mary this morning, right? But then obviously you've already started drinking again early in the day. Your chances of drinking again later, and now you're on more frequent use, higher quantities, and on the way to problematic use. So Wendy Slutsky, a whole bunch of folks have really done some good work on this. But the bottom line is people at exaggerated risk seem to show worse hangover, but also seem to do some of that hair of the dog drinking. So there are biphasic effects in the sense that you're stimulated at first and sedated later. Now, obviously, the placebo group shows this as well, just because the night is going along. But truth be told, there do seem to be biphasic effects in alcohol. When you give it to the bunnies and they show biphasic effects, their little ear falls forward when they're first getting drunk. And bottom line is, personality risk and family history risk do seem to relate to subjective effects of alcohol. Now, folks are going to say, hey, is there an alcoholic personality? I need to be candid. No, there is not. And even the notion that there is an addictive personality isn't holding water in the way we'd say there's a narcissistic personality or an extroverted personality. But we do see a subset of 2 folks who do tend to end up having more problems drinking. One is this kind of disinhibited, antisocial personality type person seems to be at more risk for alcoholism. They also seem to show some of those frontal lobe deficits we talked about before, where they can't inhibit a dominant response. They can't seem to basically get themselves to quit whatever is the reflexive thing. So as you would guess, ADHD, antisocial personality disorder, some of the frontal lobe head injury, those folks end up having more problems that are alcohol related. And the personality scales, the first one was this McAndrew scale, which was basically just a measure of how much of a backslabbing, disinhibited, extroverted, give lectures with your shoes off kind of person are you? And what a surprise, loosely related to sensation seeking. So remember when I said, hey, everybody, if you stand in line to be in the front car of a roller coaster, raise your hand, right? The sensation seekers are also at exaggerated risk for developing alcohol problems. And so that kind of personality. And then there's another subset of folks who usually are anxious and believe alcohol is going to decrease their anxiety. The problem with this is pharmacologically, alcohol does decrease anxiety. So challenging that expectancy often involves having to train folks in an alternative way to handle their anxiety. But it's not that there's one addictive personality. It's that a certain subset of folks can get to alcohol problems through a couple of different mechanisms, including disinhibition or a sort of self-medication for anxiety. What was his name again? I don't mean to be slut-shaming at all. I think everybody should get to sleep with anybody they want. But this notion of, hey, I may wake up with an impaired memory is a marker for problematic drinking. And I just wanted to get into some of the other acute behavioral effects that also seem to be very much pharmacological ones. So acute behavioral effects include a blackout, and that's literally, I don't remember what happened. If this does happen to you, it's a big warning bell and should be disturbing because it means you literally had this cerebrovascular accident, right? Your hippocampus was not getting the message because of the alcohol intoxication, and yet your body was walking around, which is a pretty scary thought about what you could have been doing or what you might have done, right? And that seems to happen at higher doses. This was markedly harder to study in the lab now, but back in the day, Don Goodwin, before there were ethics boards, actually had alcoholics come in, drink to blackout, and then needed something that would be weird and rare for them to remember. So he had them look into a trash can, and there was a dead rat in there. Now, obviously, just from an animal rights perspective, this is terrible, but quite a few of them could not remember, and the ones who didn't really trust the memory anyway. And he basically was the first to document in laboratory work that there was an alcohol-related blackout in humans. But we've seen in animal literature, they can't learn new tasks. It's pretty rough on encoding both both short-term acutely and long-term chronic effects of problem drinking in particular also are pretty easily assessed via memory tests. So impaired driving skills and eye-hand coordination. So the driving is no bullshit, all right? My friend Anthony Liguori has done a bunch of work in the lab where basically you just have a simulator for driving. You see all kinds of impairment, but the critical one is often that brake time. So they have a cue. It looks just like a stoplight, and they're supposed to brake, and they are nowhere near as fast, and they often don't start early enough. Thanks, cannabis totally does not have that effect, right? And so we're clearly making a lot of progress on the drunk driving, yet we're still getting estimates in that 3 to 3.5% per year for adults in the U.S. That is way too much. And I mean, we got Uber and Lyft now. It's not that much money to get a ride home anymore. Please spread the word, help out a friend, buy somebody an Uber, make sure we don't do this because it's super bad when you die. It's also super hard on you when you cause an accident and hurt someone else. I'll talk about some of that more at the end. And then this increased tendency towards violence and aggression. One of the subjective effects of alcohol is it basically decreases your attentional capacity. If you imagined your alcohol-induced attention was this little bitty flashlight beam, right? And before alcohol, it might be this really big beam like you would get out of a giant flashlight or a great big skylight or one of the ones that they use to call ships or something, right? And then once you're consuming alcohol, the amount of attention you have just decreases, right? And Claude Steele has shown this with some secondary reaction time data where basically people just do not attend to alternative tasks if their mind is on a single task and they've had a lot to drink. This does in some ways explain some of the deviant subjective effects of alcohol because people will say, well, how come it makes you sad and it makes you happy? Really what it does is decrease how much you can pay attention to. So if what you're paying attention to is a fun card game with your buddies, well, then that's all you focus on, and sure enough, you're happy. But then literally 15 minutes later, when you're by yourself and you find that you killed your goldfish because you threw alcohol in there, or you got a message on the phone saying your boyfriend dumped you or something, then suddenly all you can focus on is that negative thing. And now you're going to have an extreme negative emotion simply because the attentional capacity has decreased. Well, this applies in violence and aggression as well. People tend to interpret other people's behavior as if it were more hostile. So somebody steps on your foot, but you didn't see that somebody literally pushed them into you. You would not encode the situational attribution and assume, hey, this guy's after me, or this guy's an asshole, right? And then suddenly we do see pretty high contributors in both perpetrators of aggression, but also victims of aggression. If you are intoxicated, you do make yourself a mark for folks who might be looking to hurt someone or steal from someone or things like that. All right, this is just a scary picture of a couple of people getting into a fight in an alcohol city. Oh, so acute behavioral effects of alcohol, hangover as acute withdrawal. I got into this already, but basically links to risk in unexpected ways. Well, what is withdrawal? We talked about DT, the delirium tremens, right? That shaking. That's an extreme form of withdrawal. And physiologists and physicians have basically, developed different stages of this and tried to rank the severity depending upon how severe the tremor is, how conscious you are, things like that. But bottom line is hangover is in some ways a mini DT, a mini withdrawal setting. You're getting your blood alcohol concentration back down to zero and your body is not reacting well because it's been doing all these things in the opposite direction of alcohol to keep you battling it. Now the alcohol's gone and it's still doing that. It takes your body a while to catch up. And thus, yes, these do link to risk in unexpected ways. So sons of alcoholic fathers have worse hangovers, and people with disinhibited personality traits also seem to have worse hangovers. And it seems to be part of the mechanism for problematic drinking. I do know that this comes up a lot, is that there's a potential health benefit of alcohol consumption. I just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to hear about these, but I need to emphasize that they are not particularly large, and the health problems related to alcohol pretty clearly outnumber them. So the reducing risk of heart disease was such a big finding with the French paradox, where here are these French people who drink red wine, but they eat nothing but cheese, and they make fun of people who exercise, and they smoke a ton of cigarettes. How do they live so long? Part of it is, hey, they're French. They're not putting the pressure on themselves that we have. Like, they don't give a damn about overnight shipping or all the crazy things that we think are so important. They like to sit around and talk to their families and have a good time, things like that. And I think that does a ton to reduce your risk for heart disease. But in randomly assigned placebo-controlled studies, you do see folks get a modest increase in their HDL cholesterol, the so-called good cholesterol, if they're drinking a small amount of alcohol, usually one standard drink every day. And in just a couple of weeks, you'll see increases in HDL cholesterol. I gotta be candid, though, you do just as well to do this with exercise. You can lower your heart disease risk by taking one of those little dinky aspirins a day just as much as you would if you did this. Right? Reduce risk of diabetes mellitus. Again, pretty big epidemiological studies have shown this more than once, that there's less diabetes in folks who drink moderate, and we're talking, 2 drinks a day or less. But it's not a big effect, all right? It's not that you're even cutting your risk in half. It's just a modest decrease. Reduce risk of stroke. Well, vascular stroke, probably not, but hemorrhagic. Well, okay, basically the bottom line is, yes, there is a modest decrease in your risk for stroke in regular drinkers who don't drink a lot per session, but who drink pretty regularly. I think, truth be told, there's something about people who just drink one drink a night that may be a contributor to this as well. They're probably less hard driving, some of the personality traits that contribute, or they don't take on the stressors that other people do. So let's just keep that in mind. And then reduce risk for dementia. This has replicated as well. Probably just vascular dementia, not necessarily Alzheimer's. But again, there are better ways to get at this exercise, laying off the meat, things like that. And again, I'm saying in big letters here, only moderate levels of alcohol consumption, not heavy. Truth be told, if you would eat 5 fruits a day, you'd get all this without any of that. So the other issue with chronic effects is just I want to emphasize that the cancer literature is worse than we once realized. So literally every drink does seem to increase risk for certain types of cancer, particularly the cancers that are related to contact with the alcohol or breast cancer in women, right? So I'm only going to focus on the ones where the odds ratio is 2 or more, meaning you've at least doubled the risk for this kind of cancer if you're a regular drinker. And by that, I mean above 14 a week for men or 7 a week for women. And some of these are pretty frightening. So to be 5 times the risk for pharyngeal or esophageal cancer, basically anything in your throat there that is right where you're swallowing alcohol, those risks for cancer really do increase pretty dramatically, 5 times what they are for normal people. Now, what's the base rate for this? It's not particularly high, but at least here's a way to keep that down. Liver cancer, which I thought was going to clearly be the big one, I think is partly confounded by there's so many folks who get liver cancer from other mechanisms, right? But at least doubles, and gallbladder cancer at least triples in this big meta-analysis that Bagnardi published about 5 years ago. Again, so the links between cancer and alcohol are big relative to other things. It's not like smoking cigarettes and lung cancer, but again, pretty big. And then, how do they control for the fact that a lot of folks who use alcohol also use cigarettes? And it's done statistically, and I think that that's a ridiculous underestimation of the whole process. Okay, so here's a little item I'm likely to ask, if not this exact one, an item just like this on the test. It says, which cell from the balanced placebo design would you look at to get a feel for pure expectancy, right? Only expectations. And so I have A, told alcohol, receive alcohol, B, told alcohol, receive placebo, or C, told placebo, received alcohol. All right, and let's just think this one through. Okay, we want expectancy only, right? So told alcohol, well, that sounds right. Receive alcohol, no, that's going to be the pharmacological effect as well. B, told alcohol, receive placebo. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, this is exactly what we're looking for. Pure expectancy. They're going to show us how they behave when they think they have alcohol, but they're not actually going to get it pharmacologically. All right, my soapbox for guidelines for responsible drinking. And truth be told, what you do with your own body is your business until it has an impact on somebody else's body. So drink as much as you want. Nevertheless, I'd like you to be informed, just say no K and no W about how this works. So know how much you are drinking. Obviously, if I come into some place and somebody says, here, drink this punch, and I have no idea what concentration, what proof, what is in there at all, not a good idea. And after we saw with the GHB lecture and some of the Rohypnol and things, who knows what's in that beverage. So please pour your own drinks and drink your own drinks slowly. All right. Choose beer or wine over liquor. Now, truth be told, all of them are alcohol. Alcohol is alcohol. If I make an alcoholic drink and it's not all alcohol, I could get it to the same alcohol concentration as beer or wine. But folks don't really do that. And by this, I mean don't do shots, right? Basically, if I'm going to have an 80 proof shot, that's the same as drinking a whole beer. But odds are high, I've seen you guys drink, all right? A beer is going to take longer than just a shot, even if you're sipping it, even if you're savoring it, even if you're really a whiskey aficionado, that's the issue, right? Same with wine. Generally, a 5-ounce glass of wine is a standard drink. Folks are going to take a little more time with that than they are with some shot of rot gut, Rebel Yell, blah, right? Drink slowly, right? Again, if what you're drinking doesn't taste good, drink something else. Oh, but that's too expensive. Well, don't buy as much of it. Get something that really does taste good. Savor it, relish it, enjoy, right? And take your time with it. And if it's not worth drinking, don't drink it. life's too short to smoke bad pot, but life's too short to drink yucky drinks, right? Find something you genuinely like if you want to be an appreciator of alcohol, and then a little is enough. Alternate non-alcoholic drinks with alcoholic drinks. So clearly the staying hydrated is going to be the key to keeping negative consequences to a minimum. No chugging, no shots, no drinking games. All right. Now, perhaps I am a cardinal, but the idea of drinking games as a marker for problematic drinking has been replicated multiple times. Craig Nagoshi did this at Arizona first. Take-home messages, this is just a way to drink a lot in a small amount of time. So if this is fun for you, what can I say? It's a high-risk strategy. Perhaps there's a game you could play that includes drinking water in there, or you could just play a game while you're drinking that doesn't have to do with chugging. The notion of having to drink every time Trump can't pronounce something is really going to get you plowed really fast. More guidelines. So don't cluster your drinking. That's basically the same as alternating with non-alcoholic beverages, or essentially taking your time to drink slowly. This is another way to get to that. And really all the harm reduction strategies for alcohol are attempts to decrease quantity. Eat something substantial before drinking. Our take-home message on this is just, if I've already got alcohol in my stomach, the alcohol is going to be absorbed, in the intestine more slowly if there's some food in there as well. And so then the peak blood alcohol concentration will not be as high, right? And this is also well documented. So part of the research on drinking in the lab is usually asking folks to not drink for 4 hours before they come in, so that you can have a standard guess at how much you should give them to get them to a standard blood alcohol concentration, right? But if you eat something, yes, the alcohol does get into the food, but that's not really the issue so much as the alcohol is going to be metabolized at a slower rate from there. Your peak blood alcohol concentration won't be as high. And yeah, this is well documented. Never drink alone. All right, this is a personal thing, but odds are high. Intoxication, knowing what we know about its impact on attention, if you're going to sit by yourself and ruminate about something negative, alcohol is not going to make that any better. And don't drink and drive. I think I perseverated on that long enough. Know when to say when. Really, the bottom line is we all have modest indicators of alcohol's effects. So my advisor in grad school, Dick Young, may his soul rest in peace, he knew when his ears started to get a little bit red, he was supposed to be done for the night. Now, obviously, he died of liver problems, so sounds like he went past the old red ear stage quite a few nights. But again, each of us has, if I notice I'm slurring my words, holy cow, that is way too much, right? If you're catching yourself being extra disinhibited when you're not usually that way, some of us are, maybe that's your sign. Oh, hey, maybe I need to slow down. All right? And find your own personal one, and then you know it from then on out. Don't wait till you throw up. All right, and this is just a woman contemplating, where are my keys, while she's looking at alcohol, or should I be driving? And the answer, of course, is no. All right, so I do have one slide that is totally gross, and it's this woman who was harmed in a drunk driving accident, and it was part of a big campaign where the kid who did this, the guilt was just overwhelming and induced all kinds of horrors. But the bottom line, okay, you don't have to look if you don't want to. Here it is. She really had her face essentially burnt off, lost all her eye function in one eye. One eye is still good, but has no lashes, and she has to have somebody wet her eye for her because of some problems. And yeah, she used to be really beautiful. This is in some ways worse than dying yourself. Just knowing that you wrecked somebody else's life like this is a real heartbreaker. All right. Bottom line, so we've got a drug that seems to work in the GABA system. Acute effects are well known. Chronic effects include some exaggerated risk for cancer. Is there a dude? Well, not really. It does go back probably at least to 6400 BC. We've been fermenting things since ancient times. There's no one guy who's known as the guy who invented alcohol or anything like that. So I'm not going to get caught up in any of that. And some of the fun facts we talked about had to do with placebo effects, including the role of expectancy in alcohol-related sex effects. And I think that'll get you there. Feel free to go ahead and leave me messages right here on the YouTube channel or email me as you see fit. I'm missing you guys. I can't even tell you how ridiculous this feels talking this shit by myself. But I think things are going to turn around. We're going to have a good end of the semester. Stay strong and talk to you soon.